This one goes out to the Artcasters. Ooh, Artcasters! I see you catching your spell, Artcasters. Catching your spell. Ooh, you're gonna cast that spell. Strike a hell. Whoa! Ooh. Hi, 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 hi.
Greetings, everyone. We are back and we are live. This is Artcasters number 478, and we have a new guest that we haven't had on, so we're anxious to get talking to Ed here in a minute. But first, we're going to do what we always do, go around the virtual room, introduce ourselves, and talk about anything we have going on. For me, my website is where you can get pretty much everything I do. You go to my website, that'll take you to my book, Young and the Dead. It's a kids versus zombie adventure story. Just think Goonies meets Night of the Living Dead. I also have my wax packs for sale up there. I've got links to my YouTube channel, and there's going to be a bunch of cool stuff coming soon to my YouTube channel, including an all new YouTube channel, which I'll be letting people know about soon. But still a few weeks away from that, but exciting stuff coming your way. But go to circworks.com for all of that. Josh, what about you?
All right. Yeah, I'm often live streaming on YouTube as Joshua Kemble while I'm working on Not Death But Love, the strange supernatural story of Elizabeth Barrett Browning for Turner Publishing. And then you can check out my two graphic novels, Two Stories and Jacob's Apartment at bookstores everywhere. So pick those up, support indie comics. And you can also check out my music at joshuakemble.com or my band No Saboteurs. Not joshuakemble.com, Joshua Kemble or No Saboteurs on Spotify and music platforms everywhere. Yeah.
All right. So Ed Davis is our guest, who is the creator of Immortal Era and a few other things. So Ed, let everyone know where they can find Immortal Era, and there's also a link in the description to your link tree, which will take you to that. But anything else you want to promote, just let us know.
Okay, so Immortal Era, I have a web store that you can get it. I just finished up a Kickstarter for issue 11, and you can still go there. It's still active right now. I'm doing the late pledges. I'm going to do those for about a week. And you can go to finishlinecomics.com. That can get you to all the different places. The link tree, that's also easy because that gets you to all my different social media. But it's all under Finish Line Comics. I also have a YouTube channel that I'm trying to grow where I do 2 weekly podcasts. I do one where I interview comic creators, kind of like you're doing, but we just shoot the breeze about random things. It's, completely unstructured and we go off the rails, and that's the fun of it. And the other show is where I evaluate a new album, play it once and have to evaluate it. And we set it into different categories and things like that. And you have to take these meticulous notes about the album, and it's interesting approaching new albums, especially because my co-host loves the 70s music and I despise it. So
really?
we clash all the time, and he tries to play things that he knows I don't like, and now I think he's doing it on purpose. So I'm like, okay, I'm gonna throw some post-hardcore at you and things like that. So we have
how
fun.
You feel about Rites of Spring, co-host? Sorry.
No, we did Bear versus Shark. I don't know if you know that.
Yeah, that's my jam.
We did Bear versus Shark, and he actually liked him. The thing is, he's so open-minded about music. That's why I picked him.
Yeah,
because there's few things he dislikes. The only Taylor Swift. That's what we found is when we did a Taylor Swift album that was a request from one of his friends, not from me, and he was really upset about the Taylor Swift. I'm like, I don't feel the same animosity. At least he's writing her own songs at this point. Like there's so many pop stars that just have a committee doing all the work. So at least she's putting some in herself. It doesn't mean I'm going to go out and buy her catalog.
Yeah.
But yeah, we did that. And we try to find, I try to dig out new, obscure, cool indie bands. The same way I love indie comics, I love indie music. So I'm always trying to find bands that people haven't heard of. It doesn't get the great ratings because people want to hear us talk about Bruce Springsteen or the Eagles or something like that. But when we talk about Bear versus Shark, I feel a lot more passionate because I'm like, I want to thrust this band into the world. I want the world to know. So
yeah, you guys really should check out Bear versus Shark. It's amazing. I mean,
Yeah.
it's Anyhow,
See, I'm probably more like your co-host, where I gravitate more to the '70s stuff or
But see,
hip hop. But
he's getting we're just finally digging into hip hop, because I told him we had done about 20 shows and not covered any hip hop albums. So last week we did a Tribe Called Quest album.
yeah,
Nice. Which one?
We did a Beastie Boys one. So we're trying to get into
cool.
more variety. And
Yeah.
he's from the South, so he knows more country, and my country knowledge is very small. Like
I
I
feel like
nothing.
your description, it sounds like we have a lot in common. Because like my least listened to thing would be like disco or country. Like those are like the two things I'm not going to touch. Like yeah, that's awesome.
But now I've been force fed a few country albums. I'm like, okay, it's not so bad, but it's still, it's not my wheelhouse. But I have to keep an open mind, because I throw a lot of things his way. Like, okay, I'm throwing post rock at you. Here's Godspeed You Black Emperor. We're going to cover an album that's fully instrumental, and those are my ones I have fun, because those are the ones that I love that no one's ever heard of. And you hope you can get people, some knowledge of them. And then what does Godspeed do this week? They yanked all their stuff from streaming, so it's like, okay, never mind. You got to go buy vinyl if you want to hear them, and no one's doing that for a band they don't know.
I love it.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, we'll definitely have to. We're gonna have to check that out, and hopefully everyone watching will check that out. Are those in the link tree as well?
They podcast? Are. In my YouTube, it's there, and it's all in the live area, and it's called First Impressions. So
awesome.
We have a First Impressions playlist. I'm still working on editing them to get them onto Spotify, where I can actually add sound clips and not get yanked off the air like you would if you play them on YouTube. So we're working on that, but it's a slow process, because I'm a one-man team on that one. So it's everything's slow.
Yeah, we got a comment here. I prefer classic country more than modern. I love Johnny Cash. I don't even really consider him so much. I know he's kind of country. It's the same thing with as far as modern. Like, I like Stapleton, but I don't even know if I considered him country. Like, I don't know if you guys are familiar, but
that's
he's a little more bluesy kind of.
It's more kind of Southern blues rock is what I got from it. That was the vibes I picked up, and that was his way of easing me into country, because he knows it's not my wheelhouse. And then he discovered how much I hate the 70s rock. He discovered that by accident, as he threw a Joe Walsh album at me and a couple other things like that. Oh, and a Gordon Lightfoot, and oh man.
So
I don't play nice. Why should I? It's like, you know what? I don't have to pretend I like this.
Yeah. Well, to each their own, obviously, but that's cool. I think that makes for a better podcast if there's a little back and forth and everything. So that's cool. Yeah.
Definitely, and I mean, I think shows like that are great too, because just you talking about it makes me want to talk about music, which is I'm guessing that'll really engage the chat and stuff. That's awesome.
Yeah, and I think when it comes down to it, you look at the best shows like Siskel and Ebert, who kind of started the two talking heads. Yeah. What was the best was when they didn't agree. When they agreed, it was nice, because they're going to give you all the reasons why they love the movie, why they agree. But when they disagreed so vehemently, that was beautiful television. And I remember I'm 10 years old watching them, and like, why are you watching those two guys? I'm like, they're just cool. I love watching them yell at each other. It's
especially when they had to vigorously defend something. It's so good.
Yeah, I definitely didn't always agree with them, but they were fun to watch. They definitely didn't like anything horror, anything mostly nothing sci-fi. So, but yeah, it was super. It was super fun to watch and everything. Mm-hmm. So interesting story. So one of the reasons why Ed is on the show, because he was a recommend by a guest who we've had on the show quite a few times, Lori Calcaterra. And then so I reached out to Ed, and I in kind of organizing him getting on the show, and I said, can you send me some samples of the work you're doing? And so he sent me some digital comics, and then I like, these are really familiar. And then I went through my box of indie comics, and I'm like, oh, I already have a few of these. So I must have met Ed at a show, and usually, because I'm an indie comics artist, and I like to support indies, and I go around, and typically you must have had a good pitch, because typically I'll go around and I'll buy like the first issue just to check it out. But I bought like the first 4, so you had a pretty good pitch. And the interesting thing about that pitch, which I didn't make the connection, but it's so we talked about this a little bit before the show, but your comic and Lori's have a very similar premise in the fact that death is broken and people just don't die anymore. But and I'll let you kind of go into this a little more, but the one thing I want to kind of bring up before this, because a lot of people sometimes are worried that either people are going to steal your idea, or if people have similar ideas and like, oh, I can't do that anymore because the ideas are too similar. I mean, and I start, and I'm not as prolific as you. It takes me, I do a bunch of different things. So my comic book is has been sort of a back burner thing that I do whenever I can here and there while I'm doing a bunch of other creative projects. But so it took a long time for me to do that. And in that time, my comic was sort of an ode to like Goonies and Monster Squad and E.T. and all those movies before. And I started even before Super 8 came out. So no one was doing anything like that. And through the course of me finally completing this book, so many things like Stranger Things popped up and just all these other things, just because it's sort of, that's in the zeitgeist, because people that grew up in the same era as me love those movies and they will want to kind of integrate that into their creative projects. So but there was never a point where, I mean, there were certain things like, oh, that's kind of a little similar to what I was doing, but I think just in general, when you're creating something, you're going to bring your own voice to the project. And as similar as the premises for both your comic and Lori's comic, the execution is quite different. So I don't know if you want to kind of go into that.
Yeah, I mean, for me, and it's inevitable, you're going to be similar to things. And people will come up to my table, I'll give them the pitch, and they'll say, this sounds just like this, or just this sounds just like that. And I tell them, look, I will tell you where I got my inspiration for the book. It was Gulliver's Travels. I said, if you read the full book, most people only read where he becomes giant, where he becomes tiny, but he travels to just a whole bunch of different islands. And he travels to one where everyone's immortal. And, we had to read it. I had to read it in college. Just this little short thing that was in one of those giant, phone book size English lit books that you had to read if you're an English lit major like I was. And I read it and it just got my wheels spinning. Like, he finds this immortal island, thinks it's paradise at first, thinks this is where I want to live out my days. What a beautiful place. Then he finds the people that have aged ridiculously. They're hundreds upon hundreds of years old. They can't think, they can't move. They're in misery all the time. And he leaves the island. It's only about 8 pages, just quick, but realizes quickly, oh, immortality sucks. Never mind. I'm going to leave that. And that's what sprung the idea up in my head. And then also I think it's the On a Pale Horse. There was a trilogy of those ones. So I took inspiration from that. So you're always going to take inspiration from things. And I tell people, I only steal from the best. I steal from classic literature and Jonathan Swift. If they want to call me a ripoff artist, I'm like, hey, everyone takes it, because this story that you're telling me seems so similar to mine, probably also ripped off Jonathan Swift, because a lot of these guys are also English lit majors, just like I was, and they're reading so much. You're just devouring material at an insane pace when you're taking 4 English lit classes in one swoop. It's like all you do is read. So of course some of that's going to come into your creation. So when initially I had Lori's book, I just hadn't read it. You get the stack of indie books, you support your friends, and I finally got to reading it. I'm like, damn, we got a lot of similarities, but she's approaching it more as this, Western, and it's more immediate right after death is gone. So mine, I do a huge time jump. So I say,
like 200
what's the
years,
world going to look like in 200 years once everyone's has this immortality? So in her world, there's still animals, and she has a giant bear, which is just amazing. But in my world, that bear's long eaten. Like it may have killed some people, but they were going to fight their way to finally eat every bit of flesh off his bone, because there's nothing left. The animals of this world where you come with me, they're gone. So generally the whole premise is there's immortality. It sucks. What caused it? How do we fix it? But everyone can approach it from a different angle. And I think that's what we've done. And yeah, she's just kind of laughing, because she said, I think we share a brain, because we're coming at it from almost the same angle, but just all different in the fact that hers turned into this, sprawling Western, and mines this huge post-apocalyptic world, which has a whole Western arc. It was in issue 9. We see that there is something beyond the city that's been shown for the beginning issues. And it's this huge Western area that's populated by a lot of the people that can't get into the city, because the cities are patrolled by these deadly police officers. And if you go in there and you don't have legal citizenship and they put a chip into your arm, they're just going to go and pop your head. Like, they're not going to kill you. They're going to pop your head and throw you into the cannibals. So in that, it's a different way of looking at it, but there's also going to be a lot of wasteland. So it becomes, the third story arc will be very Western feeling. But the good thing is, it's like, I'm in too deep to say, oh shit, Lori's is kind of similar, I guess I better stop. It's like, no, I'm already 11 in and paid for art all the way up to 13. So it's like, there's no stopping. And in the end, it's still going to be a vastly different approach. And she's talking about how issue 7 has this huge moment where she's going to reveal something. And I had been hinting at things, and we revealed them in issue 9. And that's the fun, is you see, okay, the reveals are way different. And I'm sure what will be her final outcome will be way different. But in the end, it's, it's fun to see people approaching the same thing. You shouldn't panic and think, because look through history. Everything's repeated. How many superhero stories have there been? And they can be vastly different. You can have the Justice League, and then you can have the Boys, and it's entirely different take, even though it's a similar path.
Yeah, for sure. The thing that I found interesting about that is the kind of what you said, the origin of the idea was just like you said, like a 10-page passage from Gulliver's Travels. And that's one of the things that I've done a lot of videos and things on generating ideas and things. And one of the things that I've said is, if you find like a really cool part of, an idea in something else that maybe you thought was going to go a certain way, but didn't, you're like a little disappointed, like, oh, that would have been cool if this, well, why not tell that story, tell your story? And it sounds like that you were, if correct me if I'm wrong, but you're kind of like, oh, this is a really interesting idea, but they didn't really take it that far. Whereas, but that's a good starting point for generating ideas, is if there's something that you're watching where you're like, oh, that would have been cool if they would have did this, well, do that. Or if they want to expand on something that you found interesting. So there's so many really cool kernels of ideas and inspiration that you can find from stuff that's already out there.
Yeah, and I think a lot of great work ends up being like a love letter to everything somebody loves, in general. So you'll see it in music. It's like, you'll hear bands that are like influenced by like the Pixies, but then they sound totally different. But then there's a bunch of bands around the same time that were all listening to this like obscure band from the 80s, and then they all kind of pick up that sound. There's like a thread. I feel like it's like that with all art. So I remember from doing t-shirt art too for years, I mean, you always wanted to be the first guy to a concept, but there was always this idea that inevitably you're eventually going to make a concept or a bit that somebody else did, because it's like it's all floating out there in the ether, and if people are following the same logic threads, they're inevitably going to be like coming up with a similar premise,
because exploring immortality is nothing new. I mean, you figure, all right, Dracula did it, there's a vampire now. It's a different way of looking at it, but it's still immortality, and it's more a curse of immortality. And you get a lot of different ways that you can do it. And like you said, I took that nugget of, this is a small little excerpt, and in the end, the conclusion is immortality sucks. But then in my brain, I'm thinking it does, but how could you fix it? So that becomes the approach for my story. And I started, the original notes go all the way back to 1998. So it didn't get moved into something substantial and actually, tangible until it was 2018. So we're talking, it took years to get it there where it actually became something, because it was notes that I just wouldn't let go. But it was always this thought of, we got to fix this. How could you fix it? Because Gulliver, he just left, like, okay, I'm gonna go to the next island, I'm gonna try to find my happiness somewhere else. But in my eyes, it was just this whole story just started blowing up, and I just started writing crazy amounts of notes, and I ended up with about 300 pages of what was going to be a novel, and probably will return to a novel once the comic series is done. Because you still get those people who come to your table like, oh, I don't read comic books, but I like the idea. I said, well,
it's funny, at a Comic-Con, I don't read comic books.
Oh my gosh. How many times do you hear that? If I had $1 for everyone, I'd always make my table back in the first day.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because there's been a lot of media that have featured immortal characters, but up until, and like that's why I mentioned it to Lori, I said I don't know if I've ever came across the angle where everyone's immortal, but then and then she mentioned, oh, there's Ed's book too. So yeah, interesting, very interesting.
Yeah, and like I said, that was the Gulliver's Travel one, that everyone was immortal, and the people that were up front, the ones you saw when you were greeted on the island, they're the young, you're 30 and 40. It's great being immortal. It's a good thing. You're 150, or in my world, we have people that would be 200 to 300 years old,
right?
And I write in a whole thing like what happens when you're 200 and you can't move. Well, of course, in my world, the government finds a way to exploit you, and that's where Lori was like, oh wow, we had a good villain, then you had to go ruin it by making it something so dark. And it's like, you're one to talk. I've read your book.
Yeah. Oh, that'd be fun. Yeah, it'd be interesting to get in, be a fly on the wall with some of those conversations you have with Lori with like just kind of have you ever come across like ideas that were almost exactly the same, and you're like, oh, maybe I'll go a different direction if you're going to do that?
I don't think we have, because we haven't told neither one of us have told the other what's going to happen in the future.
Right.
I mean, I'm very tight-lipped. I think the only one that knows the full story in its beginning, middle, and end would be my wife.
Okay.
And she yells at me constantly, "You're such a jerk. I can't believe you're going to do fill in the blank."
Right.
And she's like, "We still have time. I want to bargain with you. We can't do that." So yeah, she's still pleading for certain things to not happen, but she's the only one. Even my artist, he's like, "Well, I didn't know where the story was going to go." I was like, your job's to draw the story I give you. Don't worry about where it's going to go. Just trust me. If you can predict it, then I'm doing it wrong. I want to keep throwing curveballs and make you think, wow, I wouldn't have seen that one coming. And now he's kind of like, now I'm just going to take the ride, because he at first thought it was just going to be a big action adventure story. Then I brought in the fantasy elements and things like that. And he's like, okay, I wasn't ready for witches and, magic to keep things going. So yeah, it's fun when he says, oh crap, I didn't see that coming. And when your editor says the same thing. So it's always good. And my editor doesn't know what's going to happen. Like I said, one person, that would be my wife. She knows the full layout of the story.
So having said that, how long is the series going to go? Do you have like a number of issues or just...
Yeah, so 24 is the plan.
Okay.
So it would be 4 of the 6 issue story arcs. And then what I would do is I have several, I could probably do another 6 issues of kind of the in-betweens where we have a 200-year jump, but a lot would have had to happen in those 200 years. So I have written some little shorts that would go into that one. And then also a thing that I've been playing with is exploring the death mythology in different cultures and writing that death mythology with the point where, yes, I have curveballs because I always throw the baseball references. But I look at it with telling these little stories in other cultures. Because I did one, I got into an anthology and they wanted me to do a little 6-page Immortal Era story. And I just thought, okay, I'll just give you 6 pages from the book and you can make it work. But then I thought this would be fun. So I researched the Japan and the Shinigamis and things like that. And I thought, okay, well, what happens in Japan the moment everyone becomes immortal? Well, the Shinigami's going to come out, try to claim the souls, and the candles won't go out. So the candles of your life that are supposed to dispose when someone dies, they're just blowing and staying lit. And the Shinigami's looking like, oh crap, all the portals to the afterlife are closing. I'll see you later, but here you can have my eyes. And he's given the Shinigami is giving his eyes to one of the characters. And I thought it was so much fun. I would love to research all kinds of different cultures and just tell a little story of the day that immortality happened. What's their, figure of death? You have the Shinigami, you just have the Grim Reaper. Every culture has their own. And I would love to just explore those and tell Immortal Era stories in universes that aren't, directly influenced by the book, and see, also get to research all these different countries and cultures.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, and there's so much, like you said, with that 200-year gap, there's so many stories you could tell within that as well. So, so yeah, it sounds like a really cool universe to play around in. I'm kind of curious. So, have you, as far as your artistic team and you kind of building that team, have you had the same illustrator throughout the series?
I have, yeah. So I've had the same.
Now that's really interesting with indie comics because it's hard to get somebody to commit and stay on. So
yeah,
I want to know a little more about that relationship, because we have friends that are comic book writers, and they they hire artists, and there's sometimes there's a changeover with the artist where it kind of changes. Even one was like a 2-issue comic, and they lost the artist on the first one and went the different for the second. So kind of how do you maintain that that bond with your artist, and how do you kind of build that team?
Yeah, with him, I think it's just we've been working together for quite a while, and he's very eager and enthusiastic about doing work. He works on another title with me as well. So he's also working on my second title, Corruptor, but it's just something that I think we both enjoy working with each other. I mean, I would have to think, because he can find other jobs. There's other comic writers that would pay him the same page rate and everything. But the fact that he's committed to, at this point, 13 issues of Immortal Era that he's drawn 2 of Corruptor. He's done my 3 short stories in the Cthulhu anthology. And I think it's also, he has a trust where he's talked about some of the writers that he worked with, they have no flexibility. Like, you will adapt my pages my way. And if he comes to me and says, look, I think this would be better if we approached it this way, he knows I'm not an artist. I'm going to trust his vision, because at this point he's too invested in this book to do something to cut corners and compromise the title. So I think it's a good thing to have someone who truly believes and loves the project and knows that I trust him artistically to make changes if they better the story.
Yeah, definitely. That's cool. It's good that you guys have found that working relationship that, hopefully will continue on, because it is nice to have the same kind of creative team throughout a story arc. So that's awesome. And the fact that I don't know how often you put out issues. Like I said, I mean, I probably met, I'm trying to remember, we haven't figured out what year I met you and picked up your books, but I've got 4 of them. So unless I just picked up the first 4, I don't know. But since then you've put out a lot more. Yeah. But also, if you're doing 2 titles and it's the same artist, it seems like a lot of work. So
it is. And I think he's happy because it keeps him busy. I always have new pages for him to work on. So it's, okay, what do you want this month? You have this. He's actually working on a 3rd series that I'm going to be working on with him. So this one's a little mini series. So that one's just a 4-issue one, but he knows Immortal Era is going to keep going. There's,
that's cool.
We're at the halfway point, or about to release the halfway point, but he's drawn a little past the halfway point, and he knows that there's another full half to go, and that this can be steady, and that I'm not going to give him 12 issues a year. I'm not Marvel, but I'm going to give him 3 every year. He can count on 3 issues of Immortal Era. He can count on the new one that I'm putting out, the Karen Hunter book. He can count on 1 or 2 issues a year of that, because my goal is to always be ahead of what I'm releasing, so that I'm not waiting on an artist. The worst thing for me would be doing a Kickstarter, finishing the campaign, and waiting on the pages. I don't want my backers to have to wait. I want them to know that as soon as the funds clear, as soon as I have them in my bank account, I'm ordering those books, and they're going to be there with a quick
That's the way to
turnaround.
do it.
Yeah.
That's the way I do it. That's the way I have friends of ours.
I think that's the most ethical way. I know there's
Yeah.
other ways, but I feel like that's the most ethical to your customer because like
Yeah.
comics take a long time to make.
Mhm.
And so asking people to work on like wait for a comic when notoriously in comics there's delays. Like I'm working
Yeah.
on a book with a publisher and we've had to move the release date with the publisher because it's like I'm a human and it's like 290 pages or 240 pages or whatever. So it's like that's a lot of pages, you know.
Yeah.
But I would hate if like I had backers and they were expecting it like last year and like it's just that Scott and I have known people who've made that mistake once on a Kickstarter and then immediately adjusted because it's like that's an awkward position to be in, you know.
Yeah.
Because now you're having to send out emails and be like, I know you paid for this, you know, a year ago. It's like that's not a good place to be. So yeah, I think finish your book or at least finish the majority of it before you
Yeah. I always have the lettering that's still left.
Yeah,
I'll
that's
make
reasonable
sure that
though.
all the art, all the colors are done because that's the most time consuming of all the things.
Yeah.
And the letters, I mean, my letterers, I've had 2 different ones, and I feel for them because I am very meticulous, and I'll have them letter it the first time, and then I will read the book aloud.
Yeah.
Over and over again to make sure the dialogue flows.
That's
make
a
sure
really
it's
good
smooth.
editing choice.
And then like, all right, we're gonna fix it. We're gonna fix it again. And right now I have Dan Schmidt who's doing my lettering, and he's fine with it. My last letterer, I think I drove him to drink because I'm like, yeah, we need to fix these commas because I do it, I'll read it, I'll make sure the flow is good, and then I send in my assistant editor, and his job is to make sure that there's not a comma out of place. Like the punctuation, the grammar need to be perfect because one of the stigmas of indie comics is they're sloppy. And that, you know, oh, you're going to get bad grammar, you're going to get bad punctuation, just kind of like the stigma with indie music. Oh, the production's not going to be as good. I want it to be able to sit on the shelf with a Marvel book and not embarrass itself. So that makes my poor letterer lose his mind. But Dan is always so easy going and like, okay, I did my read through, but I'm going to fair warn you that now my assistant editors are going to go through and we're going to have to add probably 10 commas and remove 4 different things. And we're going to have to change some stuff. And he's just like, you know what, do your thing. Tell me. Because he agrees. He wants the best possible book to be out there.
That's 2 different things. It's if you're having it hand lettered, then that could be a problem. But
but digital lettering,
hand letters his books, which is crazy. But it's not. I mean, they look amazing, but
it's a beautiful
on that
look.
Note, Ed, actually, on that note, what Ed was saying is like really good advice for people when you're scripting. That has always changed my work when I'm writing. To read it out loud. And if you can read it to someone you trust, even if a lot of it's just hearing yourself, because especially dialogue, the second you read dialogue, stuff that looks good on paper at first when you're writing it, just you're like, no one's gonna talk like that, you know? And then he has a good point too. Like, no matter how good you are at writing, always have a second pair of eyes editing, because you'd be surprised, like when your page is in, the like little like basic just early grammatical error is gonna sneak in there. It's always and never, you know, it's not always going to be just auto corrected. So I think that's all really a good workflow. I have a question about working with an illustrator. When you're doing it, like, how do you kind of approach the collaboration? Do you write a script and then have them work from the script? Or are you writing a script and then actually giving them thumbnails or sketches or reference, like, of things you're looking at? Like, how do you kind of approach it? How much does the artist do? How much do you do? I'm just curious. Sorry, Scott,
it's pretty much all of the art is in his hands. Once in a while, I'll provide references because we have the cultural differences. He's from Brazil, and there was one thing where I was describing a strip mall.
Right.
He had no clue what I was talking about.
Right.
So I
He
went out
draws
and
like a mall
snapped-
with a bunch of strippers or something. You're like,
Yeah,
no, no,
that's
no,
what he
wrong,
thought.
wrong.
He thought like strip clubs. I said, no, it's just, like a little place with some grocery stores and
They probably
maybe
have
a
them.
salon.
They're just not the name the same,
Yeah, and that's what he said when
Yeah.
I took a couple pictures. He's like, oh, we call them though,
Yeah,
this instead.
Yeah.
But it's the little things like that. But what I do is I send the full script, and my scripts are very literary. I mean, I'm writing it like I'm writing a novel.
Yeah.
Not just page 1, a little description. Like I do the description, and it's probably way too over flowery, but that's just how I write.
Right.
And
right.
since it's coming from a novel, it's kind of written that way. And when he's reading it, it's, gives him the descriptions, and then he sends me really rough, like almost like you would see a third grader drawing some layouts.
Yep.
So I can get the idea of the angles and everything else. And I
Yeah.
can say, no, let's move the camera here.
And you can do
push it
changes
back
without
here.
it costing like tons of time and money, Yeah.
Because his layouts, he can quickly do them.
Yep.
And not have to worry about, oh, well, I spent so much time on these layouts.
Yeah.
And now you want me to start over. It's like, no, I spent probably 20 minutes on these layouts. But when you now have approved them and said, okay, don't worry about this, don't worry about that, now's the point that he pencils. And that's when it's a pain in his ass to have to make a major change.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's a good process. It sounds like you guys have a good workflow worked out. That's awesome.
So let's kind of transition into, so we've talked a little about the creation of indie comics and how you build your team and your process.
Mhm.
And we talked about you kickstarting, funding the books and everything.
Yeah.
The next step is actually getting out there and selling them. And obviously with the Kickstarter, you get a lot of sales just from the Kickstarter, but beyond that, hopefully you're paying for your print run, so that when you go to shows, it's basically pure profit other than what you're paying for table and everything.
Yeah.
But how do you now obviously, we had to have met at a convention. And I must have liked your pitch and everything because I picked up your books. So how do you approach cons, and how do you bring people to the table? How do you present your work? What are some of your kind of strategies? You had mentioned you do maybe like around 8 shows a year thereabouts.
Yeah, between 8 and 10. I'd say probably like 4 to 5 big shows, and then a handful of sprinkling of local ones, because some of those end up being your best cons.
Yeah,
where you can cut your teeth and figure out things when you do those little shows where the pressure is a lot lower.
If you have, I know we've got one here called ASCAP, which is the Arizona Comics Art Festival, which is a small 1-day show, but it's comic focused. That's all that's there are comics and a lot of mostly indie comics. There might be some creators that have worked for the big 2 or something, but mostly indies. And so those I love doing those shows because one, they're not a huge commitment. It's easy, 1 day in, 1 day out. And I typically, like, if you're just breaking it down per day, I can almost do as well as a show like that as I can at the big con. So do you have, I don't know if you have any of those out in California? Well, you must. I mean,
we do. There's a lot of little ones, and I try to do those ones. The thing I always try to avoid are the celebrity heavy little ones.
Yeah.
If they're blowing their budget to get all of these celebrities, and they're not getting A-listers, obviously. A lot of anime voice actors, they're getting, maybe someone who was on a TV show in the 70s or the 80s. But when you do that, the focus is not on your books. And those are the ones I tend to struggle at, because you see people, they're kind of double holding their 2 pictures in their hand and waiting to blow the autograph so it dries. And they get to your table and they don't care. They were there to meet this one from Dragon Ball Z or this one who voiced the Pokemon. So that's the ones you got to try to avoid. But I just try to do a lot. And for me, I went to several cons as just an attendee when I knew I was going to be releasing a book. And I just started taking notes. I started looking, why is this guy's book blowing out, and why is this one not moving at all? Disinterest is the key. You get the people like this. They're sitting on their cell phone. They could give a shit what's happening next to them. And it's almost like you're bothering them if you want to talk about the book. So I
That
learned,
is so
okay,
crazy. I mean, I get that a lot of artists are introverts, and
Mhm.
and a lot of ways you got to, if you're going to do cons, you got to get past that.
yeah,
But actively avoiding people,
yeah,
or I don't even like to do sketches at con.
yeah,
I mean, because you've got your head down. I mean, and
yeah,
I don't even, for the most part, I don't even like to sit down. I like to stand. So I'm at eye
Yeah.
level
Yeah.
with people.
I like your
But
idea, Scott, that you mentioned on a previous show where you were talking about having like a tall, or was it Chris? It was you or Chris?
that was probably,
Who-
yeah. You're talking about the tall chair.
Yeah, I think that's
Yeah.
brilliant.
So I have a tall stool that I actually had to rise up. So it was
Okay.
just about as tall. If I'm sitting on it, I'm just as tall as I would be if I'm standing.
That's
That's
So I
smart.
don't have
Yeah.
to constantly stand on my feet. The other one is to bring like one of those nice cushion mats to stand on.
Yeah. Yeah.
But then you
get-
kind of just gradually slide off when people come
Mhm.
around, so it doesn't look like you're like getting up, like you're excited to So there's a lot of
Yeah, they
there's
feel a
lot
little
of that.
awkward because they're like, "Did
Yeah.
I just walk in on a yoga session?"
You don't
What's
want to
going on?"
scare people, are like, you don't know. I mean, people are really scared if they feel like you're like, but there's a way to approach people, engage people.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I'm curious, like you said, going as an attendee and kind of doing
Mhm.
some of this research, some of the things you found. What kind of did you take away, as far as, other than the people that are just kind of got their heads in their phones and things like that?
The sitting was a big one. You got to
Yeah.
be standing. You have to be engaging, and don't be overly aggressive, because the
Yeah.
overly aggressive ones
No one
make
likes a carnival
people
barker.
flee in terror. Like they
Yeah.
will speed up to not have to engage with the person
Right.
who's coming at you way too strong. So
Yeah.
that's what I learned. You had to kind of find the happy medium. So my approach is I stand, say, "Hey, how are you? Good morning. Do you have a
Right.
few seconds to listen to a pitch about my comic book?" Like 30 seconds. It's a quick elevator pitch. I can get you in and out. I'm like, all right, fine.
Yeah,
Give me your
yeah,
30 seconds.
yeah.
And then, thanks for listening. And I hand them a sticker and they go on their way. And then what I had happen, the last show I did one Saturday, and I had some guy at the very end. I was the last exhibitor. All the other ones had packed up and given in. But I'm like, I'm here. Like, what am I going to do? What's this extra 20 minutes going to do for my life? So I was the only one set up, and some guy runs over. He's like, "Oh my gosh, someone told me I had to come listen to your pitch." So I'm
Right.
like, all right, good.
Yeah.
It's working. And it took a lot to get my pitch where it's at, because it started and I meandered and I talked.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you see
we've
that
talked about
glaze
that.
overlook.
We've
And-
talked
and you
about
know,
the
you
pitch
just
where
lost
you're explaining basically Lord of the Rings, the plot of the Lord
Yeah.
of the Rings.
Yeah.
And you like, you don't have to go into all that.
Like,
but
so
it's
there's
good
the
to know
Shire, and
It's like-
and
yeah.
it's
Yeah.
a village, and they all have round doors, and it's like right at that point you've lost them
And some
all,
on
But you're
hill,
like, but
and,
it's so detailed, I have to tell you everything.
Yeah, we need more details. But yeah, I realized, because seeing the people in this world, we live in swipe culture.
Yeah.
And people are disengaged in mere seconds.
Yeah.
Where if you don't hook them fast,
Yeah.
they're swiping you. They may not be walking away to like outright. Some do. I mean, I've had people like, nope, they just
Yeah.
walk off.
Yeah.
But that's because we're in this swipe culture. Like, I want my gratification and I want it instantly. And I'm watching 8 million TikTok videos, and I'm giving most
Yeah.
of them about 10 seconds before
Right.
I switch to the next one. So I need a pitch that can work in swipe culture.
Yeah.
So I learned at Phoenix, actually. One of the people who was next to me was this really popular artist from Japan. And he was talking about how I was failing in my pitches because I wasn't flipping through the book and showing them the art. He goes, "You're showing them the beautiful covers." He goes, "But your book has just as beautiful pictures inside, and a lot of people don't trust the covers."
Right.
So I then revised my pitch to match with the pages as I was flipping,
Yeah.
so that I would end my pitch on the exact right page I needed to. So
Yeah.
because of him, I modified that, because he said, "Yeah, your pitch is really good. It's very strong, but you're not showing them the art. And the art is going to be what gets some of these people to go from maybe to yes."
Yeah.
So I started doing that, and it works. You kind of
What
you
a
give them
good dude
that quick little
for doing
flip
that.
through. Yeah, and it was awesome, because he was such
Yeah.
a good guy. He, at the end we traded books. I gave him one of mine, he gave me one of his, and then he drew, instead of signing it, he drew a sketch of me and said, like, "You're the greatest neighbor, and
Aw.
good luck on your book." And it's like, you made me better,
Yeah.
instead of just thinking, all right, well, what do I need to tell him? This guy needs to figure it out on his own.
Right.
Yeah.
He was just making money upon money because people were coming in. He had to close down his commissions because so many people had come over to get him. So he's on top of his game, and he could have been. I've had people next to me. They don't care about your neighbor. They don't care about what you're doing.
Yeah.
Like most of them get annoyed that they have to hear my elevator pitch 8,000 times in a show, and it's always going to be the same. And I've had my neighbors pitch it for me. I'm like, you have it memorized by now. Can you pitch my book if someone comes up when I'm in the bathroom?
Yeah,
So,
that's always good. Make friends with booth mates, or always go with somebody if you're conventioning, because you do have to use the restroom. Although I will say, now that I'm teaching, I used to teach college art classes and stuff, and then I was an art director for a bit, but now I'm a high school art teacher, and having taught high school for a year and being in my second, I think I could easily rock a convention without going to the restroom once. Like I could probably rock the whole thing and just be like,
I know how to hold
this. I'm used to never using the restroom.
Yeah. You get 2 a day. You will use them wisely. So, I can narrow it down to 2 a day because I guess that's teacher bladder. I've been teaching for 26 years, so I'm like, you can't faze me with needing the bathroom. I got this covered.
Yeah, and it's like ever since becoming a teacher too. The last time I went to a convention was just to do I was doing like a panel discussion. And so I drove up and did a panel discussion with some of my friends because they coaxed me into it.
Yeah.
And then I go up there, but I noticed that my brain had changed because the second I walked in there, I'm like, okay, where's the restroom? And I wherever I walk, I'm like instantly mapping the quickest way to a restroom so that if I have like that 5 seconds. Anyhow, sorry. That was a total derail. Sorry.
Oh no, but I know, and it's true because you have to do the path. And then when people start asking you, do you know where this person is, where that person is? I said, I know where 2 things are.
Yeah.
My booth and the restroom.
Yep.
I said, and if there's something along the pathway to the restroom, I might know what that is. But generally, I'm going to move at the briskest pace possible.
Yeah.
And I can move fast so I can get there and back and not lose much time. But it's one of those things where I've had my neighbors pitch my book for me because they get the pitch memorized because it's 30 seconds, but it's always, I have about 4 variants of it because if I say
that's what I was going to say because I like to switch it up a little bit.
Lose my mind. I have about 4 variants, and I can also adapt it to who's walking, so I can focus on like the post-apocalyptic gore. If you see some metalhead walking up, you're like, all right, that's this pitch. If you see a family walking up, I can talk about the family aspect of it, but I always close it out with the same line. So it always ends at the same place, but I can take it in different directions. If someone's a big fantasy fan, you can tell they're walking and they're wearing a Lord of the Rings shirt. I can give it more of the fantasy aspect, the spin with that way. So you learn how to modify it to the person who's standing in front of you, and it works because if I had to say the same thing over and over again the whole time, I'd lose it. So every 15 minutes, there's the dream.
Yeah, I was at a con a while ago, and one of the best pitch artists I've ever seen was somebody. They had a book about like a family of ghosts and stuff, and it's like based on a really successful YouTube animation they had done about this like ghost family.
Yeah,
it's like a girl who makes friends with ghosts that help her in her childhood or something. And and I'm right next to them, and they just constantly would have people like walking by because they're at the end, which isn't always the best, and they're at the end that people are walking past to get to food, so nobody's paying attention. But they would just, as people were walking by, just be like, "Do you like ghosts?" And like the person would walk, and then you'd see them just stop and be like, actually, yes, I do. I do like ghosts.
Nice.
And it just worked every time to like pull them in. And it was funny because it was a passive, like they did it real passive, but they do it. And every time you'd see somebody get like 3 steps away from the table, stop and be like, crap, I actually have to say, yes, I do like ghosts. What do you have?
Yeah, that's smart.
Like, that's
so good.
great. Yeah. So it's harder. Like for me, I have trouble finding what that is because I do slice of life and like auto bio type stuff.
Yeah.
It's a little harder to kind of have like a real quick, give it to them pitch. So I'm still ironing that out like with that genre. But I think the more succinct and kind of passive, but intriguing you can make it.
Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah. And my closeout line is, you know, and they're on a quest to restore the natural life cycle and save humanity by killing them. And
That's great.
That's
like,
good. Yeah,
oh,
like it.
cool. And that piques their interest, and then maybe they want to know more. So they'll say, oh yeah, well, tell me a little bit about this or that. But you know, I sat there with a stopwatch. I'm like, I will get this thing in 30 seconds. And I had people in the beginning like, yeah, right, it could be 30 seconds. I'm like, look, you can pull out your phone, you can time me, and if I go to 31 seconds, this book is free. So
wow,
that's
good.
another intriguing
That's the old Domino's guarantee.
You're like, oh, wait. I said, yeah, 30 seconds of your time is all I need, because I know you want to see a lot at this con, and you don't have time to waste here on this indie comic table. But give me 30 seconds, and then I'll give you this sticker, and we can move on with our lives.
Yeah,
I love it.
And I said, if I take 31 of your seconds, you'll be walking away with a sticker and a free book. So
that's good. Yeah, and it worked. Obviously, it worked on me, but I definitely dig the way you're doing it. I do it a little differently, but I definitely see how you're doing, how it works in regards to the sticker. I use the sticker to kind of bring people in. I just basically, because people are walking by, and if you say, would you like a free sticker? No one ever there. I've maybe had 2 people that said, no, I don't like stickers.
Yeah.
But
like free
everyone's like, yeah, I want a sticker. You know, and I make it
too?
and I
have all ages stickers.
Yeah.
Even if you don't make all ages comics, because it at least gives, because I make like more mature comics, but when you have that adorable little kid like come up to your booth and want something at your con, it's always fun to be like, well, you can have a sticker, you know, and then they get a sticker, they feel good, and then you're like, but the books aren't for you, you know, but keep the sticker, you know, that's good too. And then sometimes you know, you never know, the parents will come back and buy your book, you know. So
I've had that happen more than once, where I go, because they may not be family friendly, but the worst you're going to see is just like a character with a sword.
Yeah.
And they're going to see 8 million cosplayers with a sword walking around.
Yeah.
So there's nothing graphic or bad on the cover. So I like, hey, come on over. Would you like a sticker? Like, I'd love to give you a sticker, and one day you can read my book, you know, but now it's not that day. And then the parents will circle back like, that was so cool of you. Here, like tell me about your book, and then they'll buy it, and the kid's out of earshot. So I've had that work multiple times, because they just see so many people are jerks to kids.
Yeah.
And sometimes kids they get annoying at the table. But as someone who's been teaching for 26 years, I've dealt with worse. So it's kind of like, well, I've seen the most difficult, and what your kid's doing, it's not so bad, because I had a kid start taking off my price stickers. I said, you know what? I got a deal for you. How about you give me that sticker back, and I'll give you this one. And he was so excited.
Yeah.
The parents came back and like, that was so great of you. Let me take an issue 1, because that was awesome.
That's all. Yeah.
I didn't just say, get your hands off my stuff, man.
Yeah.
Tell your kids not to touch my table. I'm like, you have
that never goes over well.
No, I mean, it doesn't.
I remember
go
just
well
being in
anyway.
stores as a kid. Those stores like, oh, don't touch anything. And as a kid, you automatically like, I don't like this person. I don't like this store. And that sticks with you when you grow up. You know, it's like, I never liked that approach. You know.
Yeah. Agreed.
But like with my sticker, so I don't even put. I mean, I put a URL on it, but other than that, it's more like a universal. So I've got these where it just says I have issues, and you know, everyone gets a kick out of it because it's comic related. It's not like I'm trying to jam my branding down your throat, other than if they want, there's a little URL on the bottom, but it gets a laugh, it gets people over to the table, and then it gives me a chance to actually pitch the book. So very, very cool. I definitely dig your approach, and this is all gold, especially for everyone watching. If you're considering doing, you know, cons as indie artists, you know, pitching something that most people aren't going to be familiar with, just the way you go about it. So this is great stuff, Ed.
And the harsh truth of it too, like if anybody's never done a con, like, you know, walk through a con yourself and be honest with yourself how you are at a con. Because like when you're at a con and let's say you're heading to get lunch and you have an agenda, are you going to be buying every book on the way there? Right. So inevitably you're going to pass on a lot of stuff that just doesn't interest you. That's just the way it is. You are one among many vendors, right? And you have like you know, Ed isn't wrong to like boil it down, because it really is an elevator pitch situation where they're walking by, and if you hook them, even if they walk away. Quite often, you know, if you were intriguing enough in your pitch, yeah, they'll circle back like later in the con. Um, and you know, but yeah, it's very like, I think it's a very humanizing experience to booth at a con, because you will see like the actual market where it's like, okay, a
Yeah.
bunch of people will pass. Like there are people who are, your book isn't for,
Oh
you
yeah.
know, kind of like if I go to Barnes and Noble, I'm not buying every book at the store, you
Yeah.
know? And I think that's useful for like people who haven't done it yet. Cause I know we're all living with our creations. And so it can feel really personal when you first con, you know, and you have those people who pass and you're like, but I made this amazing thing and I spent
Yeah.
years on it. It's like, yeah, everyone here did that, you know?
And that's going
Yeah.
to be 90% of the time. That's the thing.
Yeah.
You have to be prepared to fail a lot.
Oh yeah.
Because you're going to fail 90% of that time. And what I tell people is, if you're a seller, you are selling used cars in a lot full of beautiful used cars.
Yes.
And beautiful used car salesmen and saleswomen. And they might have the car that someone else likes better. And you can't take it personal, because everyone has a car that's their favorite.
Yeah, that's
and
great.
you have to look at it like that, because if you take it personal, you'll end day one weeping uncontrollably in your table as you realize that most of the people who came up to you and heard your pitch and gave you that friendly smile also just walked away.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And I think the interesting thing about different tastes and everything, the other thing that you mentioned is kind of identifying like a potential customer. And you're not going to be 100%. You can't always judge a book by its cover, but sometimes what somebody's cosplaying is a certain thing that may relate to what you're doing, or they've got a t-shirt. Like if somebody's walking by and has like a Goonies t-shirt, or there's a few, or I sell other things other than comics, and if I notice something that relates to something I have, I'm like, oh, do you like this? And then and then I mean, you guys, so you're kind of also looking for those connections.
Yeah, I have band references throughout my book. There's a Bauhaus reference, there's a Smashing Pumpkins reference, and there's the band Thursday actually gave me permission to use their lyrics in my book.
Cool.
Oh, nice. Which album? Like Full Collapse?
From Paris in Flames.
Oh, so, sweet. That's great.
Full Collapse. Yeah, I asked him. I saw him. He was doing a show, just a solo acoustic thing with Jeff Rickley was there. And I said, hey, I have this comic book. Would you mind if I used your lyrics? And he cleared it through the lawyers and everything.
Oh, wow.
You went to all that trouble. Wow, that's cool.
All your permissions, so that if anyone ever says anything, you can show that you have full right.
How nice.
And
wow, that's
awesome.
He
did that. And it's one of those things where now, if I see someone with a My Chemical Romance shirt, I'll say, hey, you want to hear like a connection to My Chemical Romance from my book?
Yeah.
And they're like, well, yeah. I'm like, okay, you ever heard the band Thursday? No. I'm like, well, did you know that Jeff Rickley was the one that produced My Chemical Romance's first album? After they begged him repeatedly to please produce our album, and he just kept blowing them off. And finally, he heard some material. He realized it was actually pretty decent, and he produced their first album. And guess what? He gave me permission to use this, and 9 times out of 10, they buy it when you can throw that weird connection. So you see a My Chemical Romance, you're like, hey, come on over. You see a Smashing Pumpkins, hey, guess what? This has a reference to
I will tell you, man, My
here.
Chemical Romance fans are super loyal to their band. Like, they will buy anything. Like anything.
Yeah, and
My
that's
Chemical.
The thing is, if they didn't know the Thursday connection, they're going to pretend like they did.
Yeah.
Because they don't want to be like, oh, crap, I didn't know that. Shoot. I look like a poser compared to this guy. I better buy it and be like, check it out. This has My Chemical Romance connections.
That's awesome. That's a great way to do it. I've caught myself doing that before with like band t-shirts or something like that. If it feels like the vibe of what I do, I'll be like, oh, you'd really like this. Or one of the things that was helpful was back in the day when I used to sell skateboards at conventions. That was always an in, because if you met a skater, it's like instantly you could be like, oh yeah, and do you like comics, and sell comics and stuff. But that's really great advice, Ed. That's so cool.
So do you have any? I mean, these are all great gems. Are there any other like tactics and things that you want to share, or things that have worked for you?
Honestly, I think the biggest thing is just always engage and don't discriminate with who comes to your table.
Yeah.
Cosplayers generally don't buy, but that doesn't mean you can't pitch them, because they might come the next day out of their costumes and buy the book then.
Yeah.
So I see some people, they're like, oh, I don't even waste my time with the cosplayers. They're not going to buy my book. And the cosplayers will come up, they're like, I'm not going to buy. I'm like, I didn't ask you to buy. I asked you to listen to a quick 30-second elevator pitch and then tell your friend about it. So, it's just, if you see them, my thing is, if you get close enough to my table, I will pitch you. No one will escape. I will hand you a cigarette, like, hey, come on over. Let's hear about my book. And I'll just like kind of launch into it. And just, you gotta have a fearlessness. And you gotta have a thick skin, because some people aren't going to be kind in how much they dislike your premise.
Right.
How much your premise is just a ripoff of blah and blah. And that's where I got my thing. No, I stole it from Jonathan Swift. I only steal from the best. So I'm always ready to throw it back, because they're always ready to tell you how this is exactly this or this is exactly that.
Yeah.
Well, I think they stole from Jonathan Swift too. You just didn't know it. Now you know.
Yeah. Educate flipping on him. I love it. Yeah, that's awesome. So you do, you said like 8 to 10 conventions. And then you're also a teacher, you're writing, you're pretty much art directing your books and doing all that stuff. So I mean, one of the things we kind of talk about on the show is just the discipline to kind of do all of that stuff, because I have to imagine it takes tremendous time and everything, and just even organizing shows with your teaching schedule and stuff like that. I mean, so what are some of the ways you approach all that, like balancing all of this stuff?
You just have to find a way to budget time, because there's never going to be enough time. And you have to say, okay, whatever happens, Monday, I will write from this time to this time. So every single Monday I'm going to write. And if I go in and I have some terrible writer's block, then I'm updating social media. I'm doing an email list send out. You're doing something functional for the book, and that block of time is always used on that same task. So it's book time from this to this, and then you have to plan what times you're going to do. Okay, today I'll do this task, and it's hard because life moves fast, and full-time job, and that is one of the advantages of being a teacher, is I have the summer off. I don't do summer school on purpose, because that's when I can really crank out scripts and get myself ahead. So that I know I got a lot of cons are during ahead the summer of where too. I need to be. Then you do a lot of the cons, and then you can do. I look at I never take days off, so I have months and months of sick time. So if I need it, I got it. And I look at, this con I'm going to need to take a Friday off for. This con I can skip taking the Friday off for if I go set up Thursday night.
Right.
So you have to be very meticulous about how you do it, because your schedule is always going to seem too huge to actually navigate through. So you have to do it in bite-sized chunks.
That's beautiful advice. I was talking to a young artist today who just got hired by the district, right? And I was asking him if they like paint and stuff on their own, and they were, or draw, and they were like, no. And they were talking about wanting to, and then they asked like some tips on it and stuff. And I gave them pretty much the same advice, where it's like, you have to schedule, like, even if it's like 15 minutes a day, just like it's your precious 15 minutes a day that you're always writing, or you're always working on your painting or whatever it is. And if you're consistent with that, every once in a while, that 15 minutes might turn into 2 hours, because you get hit by inspiration. And then other days you might hit that 15 minutes and be like, that sucked, but I hit my 15 minutes. Do you like The War of Art by any chance? That book, The War of Art?
I haven't read that one.
Oh, okay. It's a book about like writing and fighting resistance, but a lot of your advice kind of sounds really similar. Because it's like, it is one of those things. I think if you want to write, you're gonna have to make time to write, and if you're not writing, it's hard to call yourself a writer. For
me, it's recess times now. The kids they leave for 20 minutes. I bolt to the bathroom. I can be there and back in 2 minutes. And then it's just. Right. And the kids are like, oh, were you working on your comic right now? Yes, I was. And I just minimized the screen, and, maybe I got something accomplished. Maybe I didn't. Today, I finished up, or actually over the first couple days of this week, I finished my final lettering draft to send to the letterer. So it's
That's
just
awesome.
It's a matter of, okay, it's every day at recess. And
Yeah.
I've actually generated some really good stuff during those recess times that, okay, the bell rings, the kids leave, and it's like, okay, I got to get right back to this.
Yep.
And that story can, grow from there, because sometimes I'll just kind of text my wife, like, I'm gonna be late in class today because ideas are flowing and I don't want to stop it. So I might not be leaving the class until, hour and a half after school, because I just really want to get this done. And it's like, all right, I wish I would say I was just in there grading papers, but the idea struck me. So like, wow, you were here late today. You're working hard. I'm like, yeah, on something else, but still, it's still hard work.
No, that's awesome. That's awesome.
That's great.
And I mean, everyone's, not everyone's a teacher, but most people have whatever other obligations there are, whether it's your job or family or whatever. But I think if you're really committed enough, you can find a way to work. There's going to be, I mean, I remember when, all my kids are grown, but I remember when my kids were little, I mean, I would be at my desk bouncing my firstborn on my knee just to keep him while I'm drawing, stuff like that. So, I mean, there's little hacks and things you could do.
Yeah.
So other than, getting the word out, pitching your stuff at Comic Cons, you touched a little bit on just social media. You do the podcast.
Yeah.
Now you do that kind of like we do. Like you said, you mentioned YouTube, right? So you got a YouTube channel. Do you do any other content around comics, or is it just all live streams, or what do you use to get the word out online?
I do live streams. I always create a trailer for the new book. So I put those out on YouTube, on TikTok, on Instagram, on all the different social platforms. And I'll do a lot of just kind of talks about the book, where it's not necessarily a podcast, but it's like, okay, let's talk about Immortal Era 11. Let's just talk about that and do quick little clips about that. I also do reviews for other indie comics, where I do little things like that. So I try to just keep working, so that my thought when I had started doing this was I would go on podcasts, but the only time anyone would ever see my face was when I had something to sell them. It's like, okay, here I am. He's running the podcast. He's running the live stream and podcast circuit. He must want to sell me something. But now it's, I'm doing it multi-times a week. The majority of the shows that you're going to watch of mine, I have nothing to sell you.
Yeah.
I'm here to talk about this band. It doesn't matter. We're not selling Immortal Era today. We're just talking about whatever band happens to be the band of the week. And it's, I'm out there, and I wanted to make sure that I was a presence at all times, not just looking like a walking around with a beggar's cup, like, hey man, how about some money? Then I'll disappear again. I promise. It's like, no, you need to be an actual, you need to be a presence in this world, so that people know you're always there, and you're also helping other people out. You're not just looking like, help me. It's like, no, let me help this guy. Let me do a review of this book. Let me bring them on my show and let them talk about their book, and let people hype their stuff, because everyone needs to do it. You got to run the circuit when you're running a live Kickstarter, because your objective, of course, is to sell these books. I mean, as much as you don't want to be the guy with the beggar's cup, you kind of are, because you got to fund this. That's how you keep the next issue coming. But you build trust with your audience, and that's important. They know, okay, I'm not just there when I need something, and also I'm not going to stiff you. You're not going to wait months upon months for your book. You're going to get it quick, and then another one's going to be coming, and they know that you're not going to be a flake on them, because I can't tell you how many Kickstarters I've backed and I've never seen anything from.
Yeah, which shouldn't.
Oh yeah.
That just shouldn't happen. Yeah.
I'm in the. I definitely know that feeling, but I know myself. I know a lot of the creators that we surround ourselves with. They try to ship their stuff as soon as possible. But it's and what you're talking about, as far as kind of always being there, always being around, that's kind of always been my philosophy, and what I've done on YouTube is where it's just, you give value, and then you ask for something in return, every once in a while. And it's kind of seems to it works. And for me, I love doing that. I love being able to kind of give back because, I grew up in the era before internet where, a lot of this stuff was like trade secrets and everyone was really guarded about what information they gave away. And it was hard to figure out even what tools to use to create comics or or all of this stuff. Now, I mean, it's great, but I think people now, younger people are a little spoiled because all this information is just at their fingertips. And it's like I said, that is great. But so I don't like hold anything back. I don't really have any secrets. If you want to know, what tool I'm using, what the best way to promote your comic is according to me or whatever, I'm more than willing to share that. So, and I think that's a great, it's just kind of also sort of the freemium model that a lot of people do. I mean, you give so much, and I don't know, I haven't, and you sent me links to your digital comics. Are your comics available for free, like digital versions, or how do you do that? Or do you run anything as a web comic, or how do you build, your mailing list, all that stuff?
I do. Mailing list is primarily built from the Kickstarters and the cons. So when a Kickstarter ends, I ask are you okay to be on my mailing list?
Right. Okay.
And get them that way. And then at cons, because what you'll find is that people at a con will sign up for your mailing list even if they don't buy your book. It's like, okay, well, I'm going to sign up for your mailing list because this sounds interesting. I'll look into it later, whatever. Right. It may be a blow off, but now they're on your mailing list. And I make sure that at least 3 times a year, I send out something for free. So, it's free comic book day. Here's a free digital copy of issue 1. Oh, it's the holiday season. Why don't we celebrate with a free copy of Corruptor #1? Or, it's my wife and daughter's birthday this month in August, so I'm going to give a present to you. And you throw those free books out. So now those people that just signed up for the sake of signing up to blow you off or just to move along, they have a free copy of the book. Maybe they read and go, you know what? There's something here. I like this. I want to read more. And I always make sure that in my Kickstarter campaigns, issue 1 is $1. So if you want to buy a digital copy of issue 1, it's going to cost you $1. That's low risk, high reward. Because I'm a fan of my stuff because I think I wouldn't write it if I didn't love it. So I feel so confident that you can pay me $1 and hopefully now you're hooked. And the next campaign, because I'll be running plenty, I'll give you at least 3 a year. Next campaign, maybe you want to get issue 2's digital copy. And that one's only $2. So it's just, you keep it the price low so they can build a digital collection for cheap. And if they choose after they buy that digital $1 copy to sign up for your mailing list, then they can get some free ones as well.
Yeah, it's interesting because I've been building a mailing list. I've got a product for artists called the Comic Maker Starter Kit. And it's basically a bunch of digital tools, and it does really well as far as building my mailing list. But it's funny because everyone and in that, like I send out a mailing, when I put out like a video, and I usually do these more heavy production videos, I put one out every month. And with that, there's some sort of free thing that goes along with it in the mailing list. But it's funny because sometimes you'll get people to join the mailing list. You'll see so-and-so subscribed and then so-and-so unsubscribed. So it's like they get your free thing and then they jump off.
Yeah.
But what they don't realize is that I'm giving free stuff out all the time. So if you're into free stuff, why not stay on the mailing list?
Yeah, you'll keep getting it.
Yeah. So that's that's all great advice.
Oh,
so,
I was going to chime in on one thing too, because I remember when I was new to conventions, you have your first few where you don't really know what you're doing. Your setup's not great, and you just kind of feel pretty miserable. Like you're trying to be positive, but you're like, oh man.
Yeah.
And I remember having a couple moments early on where somebody would do that. Oh, I'll look at this like late, like this is really cool. I'll be back.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
And being like,
never
I'll
happens.
be back, But now I've done it enough to where I've definitely seen that happen a bunch where somebody like says that and they literally do come back with money and buy everything at your table. So it's like, you never know, like a good rule of thumb with like mailing lists or promoting or dealing with people is like try to like never really count them out, because you never know
Yeah.
who's actually being authentic and who's blowing you off. And
Yeah.
that's the thing. Like there might be somebody who literally is like, well, look, I am heading to the restroom right now, not
Mhm.
looking at books, but I'll get on your mailing list. And then maybe they read it,
Yeah.
later on and go, oh, this is cool. Like it was up their alley. So it's like,
Yeah.
that's, I think that's always something to really keep in mind at cons. If we're talking just like con stuff, that just came up in my head because I was like, yeah, there are always those guys that feel like they're blowing you off, but sometimes they're like, actually telling the truth.
Yeah. Sometimes they come back and buy, sometimes they don't. But
Yeah.
I'd say it's a better success rate than the standard. Like it's the 10% who will buy your book, but the ones who say they'll come back, it's about half and half.
Yeah.
And sometimes you'll see them walking and they're double fisting the bags. Like, yep, they're tapped out and they found a better car down the road.
Yeah.
That's fine. It happens. My comic is not going to be everyone's perfect flavor. And they could say, oh, I love Ghost more than I love post-apocalyptic worlds. And that Ghost book that they talked about, I need that one. And in the end, they're supporting indie, and that's going to help you, because if they're walking down Small Press or Artist Alley, a lot of people won't even go. So the fact that they're coming and giving a shot to you and everyone else, you may not be the one that gets it, but when you talk with the people in your row, you can say, okay, this is a kid-friendly book. I don't have a kid-friendly book, so if they're asking for a kid-friendly book, I'm sending them your direction.
Yeah,
if they want
always hook up your
send them
booth
my
mates or your table mates. Like any person next to you, if they have a similar thing, be like, oh, and if you like this, like check out their booth. Like always filter, like spread the love. I think that's a good one. That actually brings up a really good thing too, because at the end of the day, I've also had, and I don't con enough to have this a lot, but definitely when I've done repeat cons, I've had people who come to your table and they're like, dude, last year I was going to get this book and then I got caught up in the thing and now I'm going to get the book,
Yeah.
So again, like always be cool to people, because you never know. Like,
I don't think I've ever been outright rude, unless when they're super rude to me, I'll be a little snippy back, like the oh, well, yeah, I only steal from the best. Because they're just sitting there basically calling you a ripoff artist.
So you don't have to just sit
there.
You're
never going to be my customer, but I'm not going to be an outright jerk. I'm just going to, make a last little comment and, hopefully they get a chuckle out of it. But you get one. I mean, you'll get people that are just really rude. And your job is to not give it back. You have to be the bigger man in that situation and say, okay, they're going to walk away and be miserable at every other table. Let them go. And you don't need to return the favor, because then you're just all worked up. And the next person who comes who might want to buy is going to see you looking all angry and like, never mind, I don't want to deal with that guy. He looks pissed.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's great.
So what works for you as far as, I mean, we mentioned a little bit before we started the show about like trades and single issues, and kind of the idea that once you put out the trade, other than the first issue, a lot of those single issues failed to sell, and that you're kind of in this situation right now where you've got a trade and you're working towards a second trade, and then you've got people kind of the people that wait for the trade. But kind of what sells for you? Is it I would imagine that first trade is probably the biggest seller.
That's the best seller on the table. The first trade is the thing that when I talk about it and I say, okay, I have 11 issues out, I also have a hardcover or soft cover trade that collect the first 6 issues and one full story arc. And I also say, if you're not a big comic fan, just think of this. It's season 1. This is season 2. And they're like, oh, okay. So it dawns on them. Not everyone knows what a trade is. Not everyone knows what you're talking about, but you talk about TV, they all know TV, so you get that light bulb. And I find that the trade is the best seller, and then issue 1. I've had to go through 5 printings of issue 1, and it just keeps selling. Like every print I do sells out, and it's by far the best seller of anything, because some people don't want to commit to a $25 book if they're not quite sure it's their flavor.
Right.
So they'll buy an issue 1 and they'll give it a taste. And a lot of times they'll come back and be like, okay, I want 2 through 6 now. I'm like, ooh, you're going to have to buy the trade, because I got no number 5s, and this
Yeah.
one's almost sold out. So they'll end up buying the trade and having an issue 1 if
Right.
they like it. But, that's an extra $6. It's not going to kill them. So I think that's where they dabble. I barely sell any 7 through 11, where that's only my regulars, where you do get, like you said, you get the people that come to every con and they're like, okay, what's new? They look at your table. They're like, okay, I need that one. I'll take them. And they're always going to buy up. They're never going to back your Kickstarter because they don't want to deal with that. They want to come to your table and get caught up. And they know for me that I'll be at, several of the cons that they're going to, because I blanket Southern California. So they might catch me in San Diego. They might catch me in Anaheim. They might catch me in LA, but they'll catch me at one of them. And they just come up and they go, okay, look, I need that. I had one guy, he just took a picture. He's swiping through his pictures like, okay, I stopped on this one, so I need these 4. And you get
That's
those regulars.
I can't tell you how many times I bought the same book twice because, like you said, a lot of the times you don't get a chance to read them. If you're a creator, you're constantly creating, and you don't always get a chance to read all these books. I mean, I just read the first issue of Immortal Era, but I've still got the other 3 that I've got to get through. Yeah, and I've had them for who knows how many years.
Yeah,
2019 or 2021, one of the 2.
Yeah. The downside of being a comic creator is like when you're busy drawing comics all the time. Like I was talking, because a couple people have asked me what I'm gonna do when I finish illustrating this graphic novel. And I'm like, I'm going to read a book. I have a pile of like graphic novels and books that like, I can't like, unless it's an audiobook, I can't like, I just don't have, I can't. So it's like the idea of like sitting and being able to just absorb a graphic novel is just really exciting.
It was when I went on a cruise over the summer, and that was the first time I just sat down and read some graphic novels.
Yeah. Like, and man, you're like, that's why I do this.
I listen to a lot when I run. Like, okay, I'll listen to audiobooks and things when I run, especially when I was hired to do the Cthulhu Invades fairy tales. I had never read Lovecraft. So I was like, damn, I better do a deep dive. So I just started listening to all things Lovecraft. So my goal is always to not let the Reddit people destroy me for breaking lore or anything like that. Like, I want to be so well versed that the pissy guy that's on a subreddit for H.P. Lovecraft doesn't attack me. Like, oh, that Ed Davis, I read his book and he doesn't understand Lovecraft at all. It's like, all right, don't attack me. I'm ready for you. I'm ready. I'm wearing my armor because I read so much damn Lovecraft that I know inside and out now. So you can't get me. You may not like my take on it, but you can't complain about my understanding of the lore.
Yeah. You'd be so surprised though, because Reddit types, they find a way.
They'll find a way.
There's a while ago I illustrated a book called Barbarians, a handbook for aspiring savages that was written by like this really hilarious writer who's like he's like the biggest barbarian nerd on the planet. Like he knows everything there is to know. He's read every book, every like comic, and seen every movie, right? And it's like a parody book. But like, I remember when it was released, like the poor author, like they kept like people in the comments would just be like, well, apparently barbarians are just a joke to this man. And you're like, whoa, like what is going on? It's like, it's so nuts, and it's like, I don't know. They'll find ways sometimes.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
The trolls will be fed whether you think you can, you can avoid it or not.
Yeah. Trolls are going to troll.
Yep.
All right, so we're getting close to our 90 minutes. I want to give you a chance if there's anything we didn't touch on that you wanted to get out there, or that we maybe were about to talk about that you wanted to put a kind of a cap on. Let us know, and we'll start closing this thing out.
Okay, well, I'll kind of mention I do have a new book coming out in October called Floaters, and it's about how eye floaters will take over your brain and make you a homicidal maniac. Oh, wow. And it was written entirely in hospital waiting rooms while I was having multiple surgeries to remove eye floaters that had covered up 40% of my visual field.
Oh, wow. My goodness.
So it's the darkest place I've had to go. It's kind of, I told the artist I want it to be Junji Ito inspired weirdness. So you have, like faces coming out of people's eyes that are made up of nothing but floaters, and all this kind of weirdness. And it's a one shot. It's not a new series because the headspace it took me to write that book is not a place I want to revisit. So
yeah, Josh was just talking about on his last, I think it was his last live stream, about he had heard about Uzumaki, but he couldn't remember the name of it, which is Junji Ito, which it's on the bookshelf, and it's it's some creepy stuff. So
yeah,
it's
just
like,
the art I've seen from it, I'm like, I have to. That's definitely on my to watch and read list because it's just like it's so
very
fantastically,
I guess,
horrifying.
If you were to attach like an American creator to it, I would say like a Cronenberg, maybe.
Yeah. Cronenberg would be a good parallel, and that's kind of where I wanted to go because I was in the waiting room at that day. It was 17 hours. Wow. Among 4 different waiting rooms, waiting now for a doctor to drive in from LA to perform the first surgery.
Yeah.
And the nurse is like, "What can I do for you?" It's like, "Bring me a pad of paper and a pen because I have this story blowing up in my head." And I wrote the whole story. And then as I was leaving the hospital, I get ran at and attacked by this homeless woman. And she's shaking me and she's like, "You're not real." It's like, oh shit, revision time. She's going in the book.
Yeah.
So she made her way in, but that's coming out in October. I'm going to be, once I'm done mailing out all of the Immortal Era stuff, because I never like promoting a new thing when people are waiting on the old thing.
Yeah.
But I'm giving the teasers for it because for this one, all the art is done. Following my normal principle of never put a book out until the art is done. So the art's done. I'm working on trying to get a few more covers completed for it, but that'll be the next new thing coming out. And then of course Immortal Era 12 and the hard and soft cover that all my wait for the trade people I have been waiting for. So at that point, everything else if you want one of the 11 7 through 12 floppies, buy them now because I'm letting them all go out of print. And then just always on Wednesdays you can hear me talk about music, and that's on my YouTube. All of it's under Finish Line Comics. If you have the link tree, it's all there. And I'm always creating. So by this time next year, I'm really hoping to have, several new titles out, and also working on an anthology where I can let other people write in the Immortal Era universe. That'll be called Tales from the Immortal Era. And you can just write a story about immortality. No rules. Just don't mess with my characters because I already know their path. So we can't use them. But we have 200 years of untapped resources to play with. So I've already had a few people say that they're interested in writing it, and one is going to write it as like a straight horror story. One's writing it as a comedy because you can take it in all kinds of weird directions when the only rule is everyone's immortal. All right, now tell your story.
That's cool. That's awesome.
I love it.
Yeah. Well, you're certainly doing some awesome stuff, Ed, and it's been a pleasure just talking to you, getting to know you, and just like I said earlier, just kind of a wealth of knowledge, some just great insight for anyone that's looking to create their own comics.
Also, just look at this beautiful art behind this man.
Right?
It's just like that's some beautiful artwork.
I've got the first 4 issues here, so and I'm looking forward to reading the other 3. So
and you have the digitals of all of them. So when 11's ready, I'll shoot you that one. So
cool, awesome. Well, we'll definitely have to have you back because
I'd love
like
that.
I said, this just, and I'm gonna, and I would encourage everyone else check out Ed on his YouTube channel, see what he's doing over there. Check out the books. There is a link to his link tree in the description below. You can click on that and check out some of the stuff he's doing because like the stuff that you mentioned as far as what you're doing in the podcast is interesting too. So I'll have to check that kind of stuff out.
Also, shout out to the chats, man. You guys have been wild today. Wild. There was a long discussion about Dolly Parton, which is a good call because I was saying I don't like country, and I'm like, she's always an exception. But it's just a great chat. So thanks for tuning in.
Thank you to
lots
everyone
of stuff
in the
in
chat.
there, and that's great. You always want good engagement, so
for sure. Okay, Josh, what about you? Let everyone know where they can find your stuff online.
Yeah, so after you check out Immortal Era, you should, if you want some music to listen to, check out Joshua Kemble on Spotify for solo albums, like on music streaming platforms everywhere, or No Saboteurs if you're more into like, well, I guess they're both kind of rock, so check those out. And then, if you want to be the cool indie kid in town, buy Two Stories, graphic novel that tries to destigmatize hard conversations about faith and mental illness, and Jacob's Apartment, which is a story about two polar opposite roommates that are haunted by their childhood pasts and find commonality in suffering, and basically it's like a doomed romance. So if you took like Eternal Sunshine for the Spotless Mind, mixed it in a blender with Ghost World, and you like that flavor, you would like Jacob's Apartment. So that's my stuff.
Yeah, and as far as me, you can find my stuff at circworks.com. It's right under my name there, and you'll find this Young and the Dead. It's a kids versus zombie adventure story. Just think Goonies meets Night of the Living Dead. Lots of 80s fun action adventure. Kids and zombies. How could you go wrong with that? And again, just stay tuned to the YouTube channel. There's going to be some cool stuff coming your way. And I'm just excited about a lot of the cool stuff that's in the works right now, and I'll be letting you know as we get closer to making more official announcements on that front. We got just great comments and everything. It seems like everyone's really digging Ed, so we'll have to have him back. And thanks to Lori for introducing you too. So
thank you, Lori. If she's watching, although in her time it's a little later.
Yeah, well, she'll watch it after the fact.
Yeah,
and you
can watch it. Yeah, because I appreciate her referring you. I obviously pitched you, and I guess it worked. So there's always that. Yeah. But yeah, I appreciate that. This was a lot of fun, and awesome. I'd love to come on when I have floaters out and about to go, and I can really dig deep into the wackiness that was my life for those couple of months.
That would be great. Yeah,
my most twisted book.
Yeah, do that and definitely reach back out to us when that happens, because I think that'd make for a great show. We can get into kind of body horror and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So all right. Thanks to everyone in the chat. Oh, one other thing I forgot to mention, this show, the Artcasters, we do this show every single week. It does bounce back and forth between Josh's channel and my own. That can get a little confusing. So to alleviate that, we have a link in the description to our mailing list. We don't spam you or anything. All we do is usually 30 minutes or so before we go live, we send out a newsletter to let you know where you can find us. It's going to let you know who the guest is, what the topic's going to be, and whose channel it's going to be on. So definitely check that out. And thanks again to the chat. We will see everyone next week. Later.